俺は忍びだ。
Although I liked this episode, I thought it was kind of weird at points. Like, obviously, it was extremely lighthearted. We had some comedy in it. I still think that the previous episode, episode 106, had much better comedy in the sense of, there were more funny moments, right? But still, the comedy was okay in this episode. I did laugh a couple of times throughout it, but as I said, it was kind of weird because it was too. I don't want to say childish, but it was so not serious at points. It was almost ridiculous at points. Like up until the last couple of moments of the episode, I already had a rating that I was gonna give to this episode in my mind, and that was 6.8. But it's actually gonna be 7.1 just because of the final moments of this episode, which we had like a deep moment. When Kakashi talks about Asuma, it was emotional. There was a nice soundtrack in the background, so because of that, it's a 7.1. And another positive of this episode is world building. I think this region is called Land of Hot Water. Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't really matter, but still, it's technically world building. We're in it right now. We're learning the history of it. And overall, the Boruto series has great world building. Yes, this isn't one of the main villages, right? One of the grade 5 villages, nations, or whatever. I don't know, like the term from Naruto. But, it's a smaller place, but still, it's world building. And I actually enjoyed it. This episode, as I said, it wasn't too serious or anything like that. It was like a mini adventure. It kind of felt out of place at one point because so much emphasis was put on the cats, the dogs, and the history. But then again, that's part of the world building. It's just that this was a one episode adventure, and that's it. I mean, we're still in the land of hot water. I think that's the name. But the dog cat festival, that thing is done. I don't think that we're gonna see Kiba and his girlfriend in the next episode. But yeah, overall 7.1 for me for this episode. It wasn't horrible at all. This isn't a horrible rating because, as I said, it did have some world building. It did have a couple of funny moments, and we got a deep moment at the end. But one negative of this episode, as I said, it was ridiculous at points. It kind of felt strange. And like for example, at the end when Guy decided to smash that fire thing that Mirai produced. Like, why did he get so upset about it? Why did he destroy it or whatever? But anyway, there are quite a few what the fuck moments in this episode, but still 7.1. And personally, right, this was me trying to rate it objectively, but personally, I enjoyed this episode despite its flaws. Because you guys know that I'm a fan of slice of life and chill episodes, so yeah, it is what it is. Eventually, Boruto is going to become super dark, according to my prediction, even darker than Naruto. And for now, let's enjoy these episodes. That's my mentality. And yeah, I'm going to watch episode 108 right now, and then I'm going to review it. Yet another ridiculous episode of the Mirai arc. I don't know what's the official name for it, but this episode was hilarious. Again, we saw a very interesting side of Tenten, I must admit. And overall, this episode was just some mini crazy adventure. The thing with this arc, obviously, its main purpose isn't to massively progress the plot or anything like that. It's just supposed to showcase this mini adventure. And this adventure obviously features Mirei, Kakashi, and Guy. And, it's just filled with quite a few slice of life funny gag moments, right? That's the main point, and it's only going to last for a couple of more episodes. And it's nothing too major. I see a lot of people complaining about this because they want pure plot progression arcs. Boruto did have quite a few of those, but it also had these chill arcs, right? I'm not complaining about this because, it's only a couple of episodes, and I think this arc adds to Boruto's diversity when it comes to various arcs and arc structures. So yeah, I actually enjoyed this episode a lot. And similarly to the previous episode, this episode was extremely, like, I guess, funny, and then at the end it gets kind of deep. I think the name of that girl that appeared at the end is Tatsumi, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, it's just, it adds an emotional touch to the episode. She's visiting these hot springs, because that's what her mother's dream was, to visit these hot springs or whatever. And that got to me. I must admit, I got a little bit emotional there at the end. Now, again, this episode was ridiculous at points, and it appears that the ghost actually exists. I mean, it's probably not a ghost, but something else. But did I misunderstand that? I guess the next couple of episodes will tell. Guy's facial expressions in this episode were hilarious. That's literally the highlight of the episode, in my opinion. Mirai, I mean, I think I said this earlier throughout some of my episode reviews. I think she's a very likable character. She has not necessarily the most unique personality ever when it comes to, anime in general. You have characters like this, characters who overthink and who overly respect their superiors. So in that sense, she isn't too unique, but then again, she's not one of the main characters, right? She's not even a side character. She's like a side character, if you get what I mean. And in that sense, I'm enjoying her character, right? And I mean, this arc, it's it's so far, as I said multiple times, there are many ridiculous things in it, but it will get serious later on. I know this for a fact, but even without that knowledge, I'd assume that it will get more serious, because ever since the arc started, Mirai was thinking that this was going to be an S rank mission, and it's the exact opposite. And it's just natural for writers to surprise us, and by the end, we actually get something that's on S rank or something like that. So as for the rating of this episode, I'm gonna give it an 8.5. Unlike the last episode, which got 7.1, this episode had much better comedy. And that's basically the main reasons why I'm giving it a high rating. These episodes aren't supposed to develop the plot massively. They're supposed to make us laugh, and they're supposed to be filled with quality slice of life moments. And I felt like this episode was just that. And in my opinion, obviously, as I tried to be objective, right? But some subjectivity comes into play when I give ratings to the episodes. Obviously, I don't think I need to explain that. But in my opinion, the comedy was better in this episode, and I laughed more. That's the point, which is why I'm giving it a higher rating. I can give it a 10, just because some moments, again, were too ridiculous. Maybe at times humor was repetitive. I'm not going to get, too deeply into that, but 8.5. I really enjoyed this episode. And anyway, I'm going to watch episode 109 right now, and then I'm going to review it. So see you in a bit. I think that everybody will agree with me that this was the most serious episode of the Mirai arc so far, and that's the main reason why I enjoyed this episode so much. Before I get into the positive stuff, I just want to mention one thing that I wasn't really I wasn't really a huge fan of it, and that was the pacing of this episode. Now, slow pacing doesn't equal bad pacing. In fact, Boruto is full of slow-paced episodes, and that's something I like, because I feel like in order to when you have a slow-paced arc or a slow-paced episode, it's harder to make the episode good. You actually have to invest a lot more into the dialogue, into character interactions and stuff like that, and it just makes the entire show deeper, in my opinion. So I am a fan of that, but I'm not a fan of episodes that feel kind of dragged. Now, I'm not saying that this entire episode felt dragged, but everything leading up to Choji's appearance, and even when he appeared the first couple of minutes, I felt like it should have been paced a little bit faster. Yes, you had that conversation between Tatsumi and Mirai, a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not gonna get into detail, because this is my third review in one video. I'll try to avoid this in the future, so I can review episodes more in depth again, like I usually do. But anyway, I just felt like the pacing could have been a little bit faster. And because of that, my rating for this episode is a 9 out of 10 and not a 10 out of 10. Again, this episode had And you know, one more negative. I mean, it's not a huge negative, but I just want to mention it again. A lot of emphasis was put on food related humor, and I feel like we saw too much of it already, especially by Giorgio in the Boruto series. So I wasn't a fan of that, and that also contributes to this rating, excuse me, not being 10, and instead it's a 9. But anyway, I liked the interactions between Choji and Mirei, and you know, it was just lovely every time, you know, Choji spoke about Asuma, and I might have to rewatch the arc in which Asuma died, because yeah, this arc is making me feel very nostalgic, you know. Yeah. Anyway, at the end, there's like a mini plot twist. You know, Tatsumi says that she was lying and that she's pretty much looking for this hot spring where you can see dead people. I haven't read the Konoha Shinden novel, so I don't know if this happens in the novel. Maybe they will add it into the anime. But what if this is actually true and Mirei sees Hasuma? Now, honestly, I think there's like a 7% chance of this actually happening. I don't think it will happen, most likely, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just a thought that I wanted to throw out there, because, like, you know, Mirai is talking so much about Asuma, how she wanted to see him for a bit. It would honestly be super satisfying if she could talk to him for a little bit. But then again, you know, apart from Edo Tensei and some other you know, stuff, like, how would she, like, a hot spring that allows you to see dead people, it sounds like fan fiction, if you get what I mean. So because of that, I think that this won't happen, most likely. But if I could choose, I'd want to see this, definitely. Anyway, 9 out of 10 for me for this episode. Again, not going into detail, because yeah, third review in one video is kind of it's too much, you know. Anyway, that was your words on Hokage. Twitter, Discord, Instagram, and second channel. Links are in the description of this video. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.